My name is Amara Boateng, and before I tell you this story, I need you to understand something. I am not the kind of woman billionaires notice. I'm the kind of woman who gets asked where the bathroom is in her own office building. The kind of woman who can stand in an elevator with 6 other people and have every single one of them look right through her like she's made of glass. I had made peace with that. Being invisible kept me safe. Being invisible kept me employed. Being invisible was the only inheritance my mama ever told me to protect. Because in this world, a black woman who shines too bright gets snuffed out fast. So when I tell you that for 8 months, the CEO of Sterling Holdings watched me every single day, I need you to know I did not believe it. Not at first. Not for a long time. And when I finally did believe it, I was certain it would destroy me. It didn't, but it came close. I was 28 years old that year, the daughter of 2 Ghanaian immigrants who had crossed an ocean with nothing but a suitcase between them and a dream that America would be kinder to their children than it had been to them. My father had died of a heart attack 3 years before this story began. He was 54. He had worked himself into the grave driving a taxi 16 hours a day so I could go to community college and then to City University. By the time we buried him, the medical bills had eaten through everything he ever saved. My mother was sick too. Kidneys. She needed surgery, and she needed it soon, and the insurance from my day job at Sterling Holdings covered maybe 40% of what the hospital wanted. So I did what every daughter of immigrants knows how to do. I worked. I worked my 8 to 6 job as a junior administrative assistant on the 47th floor of Sterling Tower, filing reports for executives whose names I learned but who never bothered to learn mine. And 3 nights a week, after I had eaten a sad little dinner at my desk, I went home, changed into a gray uniform, took a different train back into Manhattan, and rode a service elevator up to the 60th floor, where I cleaned the offices of men who made more money in an hour than my father had made in a year. Nobody at my day job knew. I would have died before I let them know it. There were women on my floor who looked at my secondhand blouses and thought I was struggling. They had no idea I was working a second job at night just to keep my mother alive. I didn't tell them because pity is the most expensive thing a poor woman can accept, and I could not afford it. The first time I saw Marcus Sterling in person, I was on my hands and knees outside his office at 11 at night, scrubbing coffee out of the carpet. Someone on his executive team had spilled an entire cup before they left, and I was trying to get it out before it stained, because if the floor manager saw it in the morning, she would write me up, and a write-up meant a docked paycheck, and a docked paycheck meant my mother's prescription wouldn't get filled that week. I didn't hear his door open. I didn't know he was still in the building. The 60th floor was supposed to be empty after 9. But suddenly, there were shoes in front of me. Black leather shoes, polished so well I could see my own reflection in them, and I remember the absurd thought that flashed through my head, which was that I looked tired. I looked so tired. I lifted my eyes slowly, the way you do when you already know whatever you're about to see is going to make your stomach drop. He was standing over me. Marcus Sterling, the man whose face I had seen on the cover of 3 different business magazines that year. 6'2", dark hair that he kept short, jaw like something carved out of stone, and eyes that were the kind of gray you see in the ocean right before a storm. He didn't say anything, he just looked at me. I waited for him to ask what I was doing there, or to be annoyed that I was in his way, or to do what powerful men sometimes do when they catch a woman on her knees in an empty building. But he did none of those things. He just looked at me for what felt like a very long time, with an expression I couldn't read, and then he turned around, walked back into his office, and closed the door so quietly I barely heard it click. I scrubbed that carpet until my knuckles bled. I didn't know what else to do. The next night, when I came in for my shift, there was a new pair of cleaning gloves sitting on top of my cart. They weren't the cheap latex ones the company gave us. They were thick, soft, lined with something that felt like silk on the inside, the kind of gloves that cost more than I made in a night. There was no note, no name, just the gloves, waiting for me. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe someone had ordered them by mistake. Maybe the floor manager was finally upgrading our supplies. I put them on and finished my shift and did not let myself think about the man in the gray-eyed storm any longer than I had to. But the small things kept coming. A better chair appeared at the supply station where the cleaning staff took our breaks, replacing the wobbly metal folding one that had given me back pain for 2 years. The thermostat on the 60th floor, which used to be set so cold I could see my breath some nights, suddenly stayed at a comfortable temperature on the 3 nights I worked. A protein bar appeared on the desk outside the executive boardroom every Tuesday, the same kind, always unopened, always sitting in the exact spot where I would pass with my cart at exactly 9:45. I started to feel watched, not in a frightening way exactly, more in the way a child feels watched by a parent who has not yet announced their presence, like there was someone in the room who was holding their breath so as not to startle me. I saw him sometimes during the day, too. I would be walking through the lobby in my blouse and pencil skirt on my way to my real job, and he would be crossing toward the executive elevators, and his eyes would find me. Just for a second, just long enough for me to know that he saw me, and then he would look away, and I would look away, and we would both pretend that nothing had happened. I started losing sleep, not from fear, from confusion, from the unbearable question of why a man like that would notice a woman like me, and the deeper, more terrifying question of what I was supposed to do about it. The rumors at my day job started about 4 months in. Marcus Sterling had been requesting reports from the 47th floor personally. He had asked HR for the complete staff list. Some people whispered that layoffs were coming. Others said he was restructuring. My friend Keisha, who sat 2 desks down from me and was the only person in that building who knew my real life, leaned over one afternoon and joked, "Girl, maybe he's in love with one of us." And we both laughed because the idea was ridiculous, and I laughed the loudest because if I didn't laugh, I was going to start crying and I didn't know why. That night, I went home and updated my resume at 2 in the morning. If the layoffs were coming, I was going to be the first out. I had no degree from a school anyone respected. I had no family connections. I was the kind of employee who got cut when budgets got tight, and I knew it. I would have kept my head down for another 4 months if it hadn't been for the elevator. It was a Tuesday morning. I had overslept by 10 minutes, which for me was a catastrophe, and I came running into the lobby with my coat half on and my coffee in one hand, and I jumped into the first elevator I saw. The doors closed before I realized it was a private elevator, the kind with no buttons because it only went to 1 floor. He was already inside. For a moment, I considered pressing myself against the back wall and pretending I had not made eye contact, but he had already seen me. He was standing in the corner in a charcoal suit with no tie, holding a leather folder under one arm, and he was looking at me the way a man looks at something he has been waiting a very long time to see up close. I opened my mouth to apologize. I was going to explain that I had taken the wrong elevator, that I would get off at the next floor, that I was sorry to have intruded. But before I could get a word out, he spoke first. "You're Amara." It was not a question. It was a fact he had been carrying for a long time. I nodded. My throat had stopped working. The elevator climbed in silence. 60 floors of silence. 60 floors during which I could hear my own heartbeat and the faint hum of the machinery and absolutely nothing else. When the doors finally opened on the 60th floor, I stepped out before I remembered that this wasn't my floor. I turned to walk back in, and he was standing in the doorway, and he said very quietly, "Your mother's surgery went well. I'm glad." The doors closed before I could ask him how in the name of God he knew that. I did not sleep that night. I did not sleep the night after that either. I sat on my mother's couch in our small apartment in Queens, and I watched the lights of the city blink on and off, and I tried to make sense of a man who knew the date of my mother's kidney surgery when I had not told a single soul at that company, not even HR. I had taken vacation days. I had not filed for medical leave. There was no record. How did he know? I decided I was going to quit. Both jobs. Whatever this was, whatever Marcus Sterling was doing, I wanted no part of it. I had heard stories my whole life about what happens to black women who become curiosities to wealthy white men. We become hobbies. We become projects. We become regrets. I was not going to be any man's regret. I wrote my resignation letter that weekend. I folded it into the pocket of my apron on Monday night, and I rode the service elevator up to the 60th floor, and I walked straight to his office without knocking. He was alone. His suit jacket was on the back of his chair. His tie was loose. He was working under a single desk lamp, and when he looked up and saw me standing in his doorway in a cleaning uniform, with my heart pounding through my chest, he did not look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting. "Why are you watching me?" I said. He did not answer right away. He closed the folder in front of him. He stood up slowly, the way you stand up when you don't want to scare a deer. And then he said, "Because 8 months ago, on the sidewalk outside this building, in the rain, you stopped to help an old man pick up his groceries." I stared at him. "You were already late for your shift," he said. "I watched you check your watch twice. You missed your bus. You gave him your umbrella. You walked him 3 blocks back to his care home because he didn't know where he was. You were soaking wet when you finally came inside. You never told anyone what you'd done. You went straight to the supply closet and you started your shift 15 minutes late, and you took the write-up without arguing." My hands had started shaking. I gripped the doorframe to hold myself up. "That old man," he said, and his voice did something then, something cracked and quiet and unsteady, and he said, "was my father. He has dementia. He'd wandered out of his care facility 2 hours earlier. The staff had been searching the entire neighborhood. The police were involved. I was on a flight back from London when I got the call. By the time I landed, you had already brought him home. He didn't remember your name. He just remembered that a kind young woman with a beautiful voice had sung him a hymn his mother used to sing him, all the way back to his door." I could not breathe. "He asked the building security for the footage from that afternoon," he said. "I wanted to know who you were. I wanted to thank you. But by the time I had a name, you had already disappeared back into the building, and when I asked around, no one could tell me anything about you. Nobody on the 47th floor knew you worked nights here. Nobody on the night staff knew you worked days. You had made yourself invisible so completely that for 3 weeks I couldn't find you." He took a step closer. Just one. "And then I did find you, and I started watching because I wanted to understand what kind of woman gives her umbrella to a stranger and walks 3 blocks in the rain and never tells a soul. And what I saw, Amara, over 8 months was a woman who is kind when no one is looking, who is kind even when the people she is being kind to do not deserve it, who has been carrying a weight that would have broken most men I know, and who has carried it without bitterness, without complaint, without ever asking anyone for anything." He paused. His voice dropped. "Amara, I have to tell you something before I lose the nerve. I didn't fall in love with a stranger in the rain. I fell in love with the woman I've watched be kind every day since, when no one was watching but me." I don't remember what I said. I don't remember if I said anything at all. I remember turning around. I remember walking out of his office. I remember riding the service elevator down 60 floors with my resignation letter still in my pocket, untouched. I remember stepping out onto the cold street and walking 3 blocks before I realized I had forgotten my coat. I cried on the train all the way home. I did not go back to the night shift for 2 weeks. I told the cleaning company I had a family emergency, which was not exactly a lie. I went to my day job and I kept my head down, and I did not go anywhere near the 60th floor. He did not come find me. He did not send a message. He did not appear in my hallway or in my lobby or anywhere I had to walk past. He simply let me disappear, the way I had asked the world to let me disappear my whole life. My mother noticed something was wrong. She always noticed. One evening she made us tea and she sat me down at the little kitchen table where my father used to read the newspaper, and she said, "Daughter, tell me what is eating you." So I told her, all of it, the gloves, the thermostat, the elevator, the father in the rain, the confession. I told her about a man named Marcus Sterling who had watched me for 8 months and seen me when no one else in that whole shining city had bothered to look. I told her I was afraid. I told her I did not know what to do. She listened. She did not interrupt. And when I was done, she set her teacup down and she looked at me with the same eyes my father used to have, and she asked me one question. "Daughter," she said, "are you afraid he doesn't love you, or are you afraid that he does?" I started crying right there at the kitchen table, the kind of crying I had not done since we buried my father. My mother held me and stroked my hair and did not say another word. I went back to work the next Monday. There was an envelope on my desk on the 47th floor. I opened it with shaking hands. It was not a love letter. It was an official offer of promotion, Executive Operations Coordinator, reporting directly to the Chief of Staff with a salary 3 times what I was making, full benefits, full medical coverage for me and one dependent, and a signing bonus that would pay off the rest of my mother's hospital debt in a single check. The paperwork had been signed by HR and reviewed by 2 attorneys. Clipped to the back was a small handwritten note on heavy cream paper. "You earned this before I ever knew your name. Take it or refuse it. It has nothing to do with me. MS." I sat at my desk for a long time looking at that note, and I understood, finally, what kind of man he was. He was not buying me. He was not trapping me. He was setting me free. He was giving me the financial independence to walk away from him forever if that was what I wanted. He was making sure that whatever I chose next, I would choose it from a position of power and not of need. I took the promotion. I quit the night job. I paid off my mother's surgery in one transfer, and I cried again when I saw the 0 balance on the hospital statement. And for 3 weeks, I did not say a single word to Marcus Sterling. He let me have those 3 weeks. He did not push. He did not call. The only sign he gave me that he existed at all was a small bouquet of white lilies that appeared on my mother's hospital follow-up day, with no card, delivered to her apartment. She knew immediately who they were from. She put them in her best face, and she smiled at me with one eyebrow raised. On a Friday evening in October, after I had finished my first month in my new role, I rode the elevator up to the rooftop garden of Sterling Tower. I don't know what made me go up there. I think I just needed air. I think I just needed sky. He was already there, standing alone at the railing, watching the sun go down over Manhattan, his suit jacket folded over his arm. He did not look surprised to see me. I don't think anything I did surprised him anymore. I walked over and stood next to him at the railing. The wind moved his hair. Below us, the city was turning gold. "I took the job because I deserved it, not because of you." "I know," he said quietly. "And if I'm standing here right now, it's because of me, not because of you." "I know that too," he said. A long silence, the kind of silence that holds more than words ever could. The lights of the city began to come on one by one, the way they always do at dusk, and I could feel him next to me, and I could feel my own heart, and I could feel something else too, something I had been refusing to name for 8 months. "I'm scared, Marcus," I said. He turned to me. His gray eyes were soft in the fading light. "So am I, Amara," he said. "So am I." We did not kiss that night. We did not touch. We just stood there on the roof of his tower, two people who had finally stopped pretending, and we watched the city wake up into evening, and I understood for the first time in my entire life that being seen was not the same as being exposed, that being known was not the same as being owned, that a man could watch you for 8 months and never once try to possess you. That love, real love, the kind my mother and father had had before the work and the years and the heart attack took it from them, was not about being claimed. It was about being chosen freely, every day, by someone who could see you all the way down to the bottom and still want to stay. I used to think love was the loud thing, the grand gesture, the roses and the proposals and the diamond rings. I learned that year that love is the quiet thing, the new gloves on a cleaning cart, the thermostat turned up on a cold night, the protein bar on a desk you always pass at the same time, the promotion offered with a note that says, "It has nothing to do with me." Love is a man who watches you give your umbrella to his father in the rain and decides that the rest of his life is going to be about being worthy of a woman who gives her umbrella away. I used to think being watched meant being judged. He taught me it could also mean being known. I used to think being invisible was the only way to survive. He taught me there was another way. He taught me that some people will see you not to use you, but to love you, and that the bravest thing a woman like me can do is let them. 3 months after that evening on the rooftop, Marcus asked me a question on that same roof, with the city lights behind him and his hands shaking just a little when he reached for mine. But that, my loves, is a story for another day. If this story touched something in you, if you have ever been the invisible woman in the room, if you have ever wondered whether anyone would ever truly see you, then I want you to do 2 things for me. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2, because I promise you the second half of my story is even more beautiful than the first. And then tell me in the comments. Tell me about a time someone saw you when you thought you were invisible. Tell me about your umbrella in the rain. I'll be reading every single one. Until next time, my loves, be kind when no one is watching. Someone always is.